pass it over to Chancellor Louis D. Farabee.
Thank you for the introduction. It is great to be with you this evening. We're excited about the start of the 22-23 school year. As shared in the introduction, I am joined by several members of the DCPS team, and we're pleased to share several updates as we prepare for the start of the school year. First and foremost, I want families to know that we missed you this summer. We're excited about welcoming you back. DCPS remains committed to our principles to ensure that all of our students feel loved, challenged, and prepared. We know that you had an exciting summer. In fact, you can see that we have had several activities for students throughout the summer, not only supporting them in their academics, but also enrichment activities as well. From canoeing to hiking in the Rock Creek Park, the band camp that we've had for students at the secondary level. It has been a summer filled with enriching activities along with academic supports. But we only have 11 days left. And on August 29th, we'll be welcoming our students back to a new school year. And so this evening, we'll share more about what to expect for this upcoming school year, how some of our protocols have shifted, and then we'll also share a little bit more about how we're supporting students in their academic needs. So to get us started, I'm going to turn it over to our Chief of Teaching and Learning, Corey Cogan, who's going to share a little bit more about what to expect for teaching and learning for this upcoming school year.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. Good afternoon, everyone. Just as the Chancellor said, we had an amazing summer of learning and enrichment for many of our students, and we are so excited to welcome back all students to continue that joyful learning into the school year. So just as a quick overview, especially for anyone who may be newer to the DCPS family, all of our schools have robust inner core offerings, including the arts, music, health, PE, and library programs. We have our core content areas that are aligned to grade level standards for learning and prepare students for the next level of their academic career. Within that curriculum, we have what are called required curricular tasks, and this is something that we have put in place partly in response to the pandemic. These are just assignments that are built into the regular curriculum that give teachers a really great indication of how students are performing on grade level standards, and then provides that opportunity for teachers to provide feedback to students, as well as use strategies such as small groups to respond to student needs that may be revealed from those tasks. We also have Cornerstones, which I'll speak more about in a moment, as well as we are excited to continue our Empowered Learners Initiative to leverage technology to enhance learning for all students, and I'll share more about that. So speaking of the Empowered Learners Initiative, we continue to have a 3-to-1 student-to-device ratio in our pre-K through second grade classes. In the earliest grades, you'll see less time on devices, but there are some thoughtful uses for how technology can enhance the learning experiences for students in the classroom. Beginning in grades 3 and through 12th grade, our students we have a 1-to-1 device ratio. Students will be assigned a device that they can use throughout the day. We believe in a really thoughtful mix of technology and non-technology throughout the day. So we don't expect to see students in front of screens all the time. As a parent, I can appreciate getting students away from screens is important at times, but our teachers and our team have been very thoughtful about how technology can enhance the learning experience, and students have access to their curriculum through our learning management system called Canvas, and this is a great way for them to stay organized and stay on top of what assignments they have and be able to submit those assignments to their teacher. We've added some additional tools that just help make the learning, again, more accessible for students. So just as 2 quick examples, we have in our elementary ELA Canvas courses, students can access audio recordings of the text that they're reading. This can be great for rereads or for students who may need some additional support in the reading process. And then you can see the example there of a secondary math course where using online digital tools can really enhance and deepen the learning experience for students by making something like an abstract math concept visual for them. Cornerstones, for those of you that have been a part of the DCPS family, you probably are familiar with our Cornerstones. These are assignments that are built into our curriculum that really focus on that integration between social, emotional, and academic development. These tend to be assignments that are exciting and engaging for students, something they might look forward to, like many of you may be familiar with the second grade bike riding cornerstone, where our second graders learn to ride a bike, plot a bike trip that they can take as a class to a neighborhood location, and then end with that celebratory bike trip as a grade level. So that's just one example. We have a couple of other examples on the screen. Our first graders have the opportunity to do programming with small robots called B-bots, and they set up mazes and can challenge older students to have the B-bots go through their mazes. And then this high school art transformed DC Cornerstone is an example of many of our cornerstones that allow an opportunity for students to showcase their work in a more public way than just within the classroom. So in this case, you can see student artwork. We do a citywide exhibition of students' artwork. I did want to focus in on a few priority areas for our academic programming this year. We are very pleased with the progress that we have made in the past couple of years in increasing our educators' expertise, as well as resources and our guidance aligned to the science of reading for our youngest learners. So early literacy will continue to be a focus area for us. And we are very lucky to be able to have great partners in the work. We have our DC Reading Clinic, we have American University, and additional partners who are providing professional development and coaching for our teachers. We have some wonderful new decodable books that are coming into our classrooms that help our students practice what they've been learning with their teachers during the literacy block. And teachers will be leveraging small group literacy to really target the needs of individual students to make sure our students' foundational reading skills are strong. A second priority area is in secondary math. So many of us may be familiar with a traditional style of math instruction where the teacher tells the students, this is how the mathematics works, the students listen, then the students practice, they try to apply that, and then the teacher can correct them if they have made a mistake or have misunderstood. We are eager to shift this a little bit to a more student-centered approach. And so in this school year, we are excited to have a new approach to teaching math, which we can see on the next slide here, which is our new curriculum called Illustrative Math. And this takes a student-centered approach to mathematics where the teacher makes sure that the students understand what the problem is, and then the students work in teams together to try to understand the problem. And as they're doing that, the teacher is circulating around and finding out what students do understand, what misunderstandings they have, et cetera, and then students share out what they've discovered, and then the teacher is able to reinforce the correct approaches or the correct way to think about the math. So it is a much more student-driven, student-friendly approach, and we have piloted this in a number of our classrooms this school year and found that both teachers and students really loved this new curriculum or this new approach, and so we're excited to roll that out to secondary schools this year. And lastly, of course, we are committed, as always, to serving all of our learners in DCPS, and wanted to highlight a few new resources, particularly for students with special needs. So students with IEPs, we have purchased some additional reading and math interventions and writing curriculum to support students in special ed classrooms or resource rooms. For our full-time programs, we have some additional resources, such as you can see on the slide, some new assistive technologies, new communication devices that Toolkit. We are constantly trying to see what's available that can serve our students even better. And then lastly, for students serving who are receiving speech therapy, we have new progress monitoring tools, which will allow teachers and service providers to give families additional and more specific information about how their students are progressing towards their goals. So I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague Cheryl to talk a little bit about what we can expect in our early childhood classrooms.
Thank you, Corey. As Corey mentioned, I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about what learning looks like in our pre-K grades and also some things that families can be doing in the next couple of weeks to help prepare themselves and prepare their little ones for the transition to school. Corey just shared with us some of the exciting shifts that are taking place in many of our math classrooms this year to make sure that the learning is even more student-centered, hands-on, active, and we take a very similar approach to learning in our pre-K grades. So in our pre-K grades, children learn through a combination of play, hands-on joyful lessons, and project-based learning experiences. On this slide, you'll see some of what the day looks like in our pre-K classrooms. So you'll see here that children have the opportunity to have breakfast and lunch in the classroom. There's also rest time or nap time for many of our little ones. The pre-K day can feel long and a little bit tiring, especially early in the year. So they do have the opportunity to rest in the afternoon. And then the rest of the day is comprised with center-based play, teacher-directed lessons, sometimes art, music experiences, that type of thing. The important thing to highlight here is that learning is taking place throughout the day. Even when children are playing in classroom centers, the centers are designed to promote important school readiness skills like literacy skills, math skills, social emotional skills, that type of thing. And teachers are also leading targeted small group lessons throughout the day so they can really focus on individual skills that children need. And teachers are really expert at making sure that every moment of the day is a learning experience. So maybe with the exception of nap time, the rest of the day, whether children are putting their coats on or getting ready for lunch or washing their hands, teachers are engaging them in conversations and being really intentional about incorporating important school readiness skills and that types of thing into the conversation. So they're learning throughout the day. You can go ahead. And all of our classrooms in pre-K have small class sizes. So of course we know our youngest learners have unique needs and really benefit from additional attention and individualization. So our pre-K 3 classrooms will never have more than 16 students in them, and our pre-K 4 classrooms don't have more than 20 students. So the class sizes are capped to keep them small to allow for that individualized attention. All of our teachers in DCPS have expertise in early childhood development, so they all have training in what early development looks like and what high quality instruction looks like with 3, 4, and 5-year-old learners. And we also have a team of expert instructional coaches, and again, these are folks who have expertise in early learning and very young children, and they provide ongoing support to our teachers throughout the year, coaching, classroom observation, feedback, that type of thing, to make sure that our teachers have the opportunity as well to continue to develop their skills as long as they are with us in DCPS. We are also unique in that we have a really robust family service team. And their role is really to embrace families during this important transition in their lives as their little ones are just starting their elementary school journey, and to support family wellness and well-being. They can answer parents' questions. They provide parent workshops, parent education opportunities, case management support. They can connect families to resources, that type of thing, and just generally provide services and supports to help families during this important time. We also have 6 schools that offer Head Start programming, and those schools have a variety of resources and supports available in them, but one of the resources I wanted to highlight was that they do have mental health clinicians as well who are assigned to those schools. And those are licensed clinicians who are able to provide support to children and families who have experienced trauma, and who can benefit from additional support during this important time. We can go ahead. And as you get ready for the start of school, there's 2 weeks left to go for our pre-K kiddos. Just a few opportunities I wanted to highlight here. One is that all of our elementary schools will be having welcome to pre-K play dates. Many of these have already occurred in many of our schools, and I know there are many more to come in the next 2 weeks. And these are really wonderful opportunities for you and your little one to come to school, to play on the playground, to meet the teachers, to make new friends, that type of thing, and generally become familiar with the classroom environment. So on that first day of school, it feels more familiar to them, and they're able to associate it with a fun experience. Our teachers will also be doing home visits or family connections, and so these take place October 29th, 30th, and 31st. Many of them will be home visits, but if parents prefer, they can be a phone call, they can be a virtual connection, they can be a meetup at a library, wherever you prefer. And those are really opportunities for families and teachers to get to know one another on an individual one-on-one basis, for teachers to learn more about your family, your child, what your child likes, doesn't like, what their experiences were before joining us at DCPS, and also to hear your hopes and dreams for this pre-K year. So teachers should be reaching out to schedule those very soon if they haven't done so already. And then, of course, our first day of pre-K is September 1st, so it is the Thursday. And the reason that the pre-K starts on Thursday is to give that opportunity for relationship building the first few days of that week. If you have not done so already, I really encourage you to check out our Ready for Pre-K Family Toolkit. And so this is an online resource that provides all kinds of information about what our pre-K program looks like, what you and your children will experience this coming year, and it also provides a lot of tips for how you can start to prepare yourself for the year and how you can prepare your little one as well. We know that for many of our youngsters, this is a transition that can feel sort of intimidating. So you'll find all kinds of ideas for things that you can do to help get your child ready for the big day on September 1st, ranging from reading stories about starting school, stories that are appropriate for 3- and 4-year-olds, and there's a list of books in the toolkit that you can find at your local public library, to visiting the school in the afternoon, on the weekends, taking some photos of your child, playing on the playground, walking around the school, maybe sitting on the front steps, that type of thing, and then revisiting those photos over the next 2 weeks. Again, so your child can become familiar and can start to associate school with something positive and fun and exciting. And then also creating a goodbye ritual. So this is something that many families do that help children to transition. It can be whatever works for your family. High five, hug, see you later. Something like that. We know that very young children benefit from consistency and predictability, and so sometimes it can be really helpful if they know exactly what the routine or what the ritual is going to be every day when they say goodbye to their loved one. All right. And then finally, there's a few things that we're really excited about this coming year that I wanted to note as well. So our Ready for Pre-K program will continue to be running workshops. Many of these will be virtual workshops for parents through the year, and these focus on topics ranging from how you can support literacy and math learning at home, to things that parents frequently reach out for support with, things like toileting, managing behavior, dealing with challenging behavior, those types of things. So check out the Ready for Pre-K website and you'll see when those are scheduled. We're also really excited to be continuing our partnership with Dr. Tracy Baxley this year. Dr. Baxley is a mom and a professor and a parenting coach, and she focuses on social justice parenting and supporting positive racial identity in young children. And she did a series last year that was really successful, focusing on talking to young children about race. And so we're really excited to continue that and offer that series again this year. And then finally, in our Head Start schools, we are beginning a new partnership with an organization called Lab Rascals. And Lab Rascals provides STEM, science and technology, engineering experiences targeted for 3-, and 4-, and 5-year-olds. So they're hands-on experiences that children and families can come to school and participate in together. One of the things that we heard from many families last year is they really were looking for more opportunities to increase STEM learning for their little ones. And so our partnership with Lab Rascals is an exciting opportunity to meet that need. And with that, I will pass it over to my colleague, Dr. Elliott.
Thank you, and good afternoon. So as our families get ready for the start of this school year, we want to remind you to be sure that your students get updated on their immunizations. So as part of their back to school checklist, please be sure that you've made an appointment with your child's doctor. Have your doctor to complete the DC Universal Health Certificate and submit that paperwork to schools. There are, on our website as well as on the DC Health website, are a list of the immunization requirements. You can see from the chart that in various grade levels, there are new immunizations that students are required to have. And it's really important that you actually make an appointment with your health provider so that you're getting that full wellness check, as well as getting updated on your vaccinations. If you're not able to do both of those, we do want to remind you of the importance of ensuring that your students are up to date on their vaccinations. We will require our students to be vaccination compliant this year. Here is just an example of what that Universal Health Certificate looks like. DC doctors are very familiar with this. Our health partners at DC Health have spent a lot of time educating our providers about the importance of this health certificate. You also may be able to pick a copy up at your school or print one off of the website in the event that you're seeing a doctor outside of DC. But this provides a lot of valuable information that our school nurses need in order to be sure that they're able to best support your students on campus. If you're not able to make that full appointment for your wellness and health visit, we want you to know that there are many, many opportunities across the city that you can get your immunizations. In fact, throughout the whole summer, DC Health and other partners have been really providing robust opportunities across the cities to provide those vaccinations. At our DC schools, all of our school-based health centers are now open and able to provide full vaccinations for our students. This includes the COVID-19 vaccinations that are required for 12-year-old students and older, as well as the other childhood immunizations that are required. In addition, this entire month of August, we've been hosting school mobile vaccination clinics across the city, both in DC public schools as well as charter schools. You can go to any of those schools. What you see here is a list of those remaining opportunities for this month. So you'll see that on Friday, Cardoza is a place that you may go to get vaccinations at the mobile clinic. And then on Monday, there's time at Woodson. And then you see next week, almost on every day, we have at least 3 schools where you're able to go to get your vaccination. So lots of opportunities. We want to be sure that all students are ready to go on the first day of school, fully compliant with those required immunizations. So we are going into our 3rd year with COVID, and where we need to have COVID-19 health and safety protocols in place. And we have worked really closely with DC Health as well as the Office of the State Superintendent of Education to ensure that we have very robust protocols that are aligned to the CDC guidance. And I'm just going to walk you through really quickly those protocols that are in place for this school year. We will no longer be conducting daily health screenings upon arrival. You may be familiar with our Ask, Look protocols that we were implementing last year. Those are no longer going to be in place. We are asking families, though, to please screen your children for COVID symptoms before they leave for school each day. The best way that we can keep our schools safe and healthy is to ensure that folks that are sick stay home. So if your students, your children have symptoms, we ask that you do keep them home and follow up with your health professionals. Secondly, with regards to case reports, we ask that you please notify your school if your student tests positive for COVID. And anyone that tests positive, similar to last year, cannot attend school, will need to isolate for at least 5 days. Back to vaccinations. The science is clear. The best way for us to stop the spread of COVID-19 is to get vaccinated. And so while vaccinations are widely available all the way down to age 5, as mandated by City Council, all students age 12 must be vaccinated against COVID-19. So we want to encourage families to please be sure that you get those vaccinations before starting school. Masks will remain optional for this upcoming school year. As a reminder, this past school year, as the CDC guidance and our DC Health guidance evolved, masking became optional. That is still optional in many cases. However, someone who is tested positive for COVID and returns to school after their 5 days of isolation, they will be required to wear that mask up to day 10. In addition, students who are visiting our school nurse suite or our health isolation room, they will also be required to mask. Masks will be provided at school for students and staff, so we are still providing that as a protective resource for our students and our staff. So they are available if students or staff arrive and need that. We will continue to keep our community informed when we have positive cases on our campus. Those daily case counts will be available on the DCPS Strong website moving forward. However, if someone in your child's class tests positive for COVID, you will receive a in writing or email notification of that case and any guidance that you may want to follow up as a close contact. Quarantines. Consistent with the updated CDC guidance, students and staff are not required to quarantine after an exposure of COVID unless they have COVID symptoms. Now that is one of the big shifts for this upcoming year, and it is directly in alignment from the recommendations from CDC. So students will no longer be required to quarantine if they're exposed. They would only have to quarantine and maybe move to isolation if they're actually showing symptoms. School testing. So last year there was a lot of testing that was happening on our campuses, a lot of asymptomatic testing. We will not continue with asymptomatic testing, the weekly testing we had. However, every school will have a dedicated health professional on their campuses to support with COVID procedures. And we will conduct test to return for the opening of the school year. In the event that a student develops COVID-like symptoms during the school day, our protocol this year will be to have our health professionals to assess the student, contact families, and we will send home a test kit with the student so that families can administer those tests or follow up with their health professionals, whatever they deem best. We are prioritizing safety. Again, one way we're doing that is to implement test to return. So that requires that everyone, all students and staff, take a COVID-19 test prior to returning to school. We implemented this procedure last year during spring break, so families should be very familiar with this. And we believe that this is an important strategy because it really limits the possibility for us to have asymptomatic individuals on our campus with COVID at the beginning of the school year. So it's a really important strategy so that we start our year off safe and strong and limit the impact of COVID on our campuses. So on the next slide, you'll see a few details about our test to return plan. About a week ago, you probably received an email message from the chancellor outlining details around test to stay. And as part of that, it indicated that your schools and our schools are going to be distributing COVID tests this upcoming week. So on Tuesday, August the 23rd, Through Friday, August 26th, families are going to be able to pick up a test at their school. Students in grades K through 12 will need to take that COVID-19 test on Sunday, August the 28th, as they're starting their first day of school on Monday, August the 29th. So you want to take it the day before school starts. Our pre-K students, our ECE students, will need to take that test on Wednesday, August the 31st, since their first day of school is Thursday, September the 1st. We ask that you follow up on our Reopen Strong website because it gives you some additional details about the dates and times that your schools are open for you to pick up those COVID tests. So while we're starting the school year and there's a lot of things on everyone's mind, one of the things we want to be sure that we're supporting our students' emotional well-being. Coming back to school can bring on anxiety, particularly as we continue to provide schooling during COVID. So we want to know that there are resources that families can be using at home, as well as resources that we'll be using at school. So here are a couple of ideas to support your child's mental health as they return to in-person learning, and I'll just go briefly over a couple. One idea is to really help your young person or your child to focus on what they control, right? So there are things that are within their control to keep them safe. So with regards to COVID, they can focus on washing their hands, wearing a mask, social distancing to the greatest extent possible. So there are things that they can do to keep themselves safe in the event that they still have concerns around COVID. Also, if there is, the issue is really around anxiety, there are some grounding techniques that you may want to practice with your young person, and this is just, helping to teach them to place their feet on the ground, to be grounded, to practice breathing, deep breathing, and to really think about what they can control in the circumstance, as well as the resources that they have for problem solving. Also, and I think my colleague Cheryl mentioned early, really promoting safety and predictable routines for your students, having house rules, and thinking about the work that we do as a family. And then finally, I would say you think about responding with the 2 E's, which is empathize and encourage. So this is actually a strategy for a parent to use. Expressing feelings should be a normal part of what our young people do, and just really thinking about empathizing, understanding the feeling, accepting the feeling, and then finally encouraging them around problem solving. So with that, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Dr. Elliott. Good evening again. I am going to be sharing some operational updates for the upcoming school year. Starting up with our food services program, breakfast, after school, and supper, and our snack program will remain free for all DCPS students. Lunch will remain free for students who meet the eligibility below. Our lunch meal cost for students who are paying will be $3. As it relates to our meal service locations, our students, our pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 students will continue to receive meals in the classroom. Students in grades K through 12 will return to receiving their meals in the cafeteria, and they may consume where the school leader permits. The alternative breakfast program options will remain available, including our breakfast in the classroom, and grab-and-go options will be made available to students that are interested. As it relates to our DCPS emergency preparedness, our students are prepared to participate in our emergency drills, which allow everyone to practice and prepare in the event of an actual emergency. The table to your right does show the required drills as well as the frequency for the upcoming school year. Our emergency response plans have been received. All schools have been trained, and they will be submitting their emergency response plans or their ERPs by September 1. Our rave panic button and communication system, which is DCPS's alert and notification system, training did occur over the summer, and so representatives from all schools received that training and are ready to implement. Our active shooter training, the same. Representatives from our school did receive training over the summer, and they are prepared to go back to their respective schools to train their respective teams. Really excited to share an update regarding our Safe Passage programming. Safe Passage, Safe Blocks program did add 10 new DCPS schools and a new Safe Passage priority area. Those 10 schools are listed below, but I will share them with you. Anacostia High School, Bard, DC, Dill Middle School, Ida B. Wells Middle School, Johnson Middle School, King Elementary, Phelps High School, Stanton Elementary School, Turner Elementary School, and H.D. Woodson. The Petworth Brightwood priority area was created from the schools that were previously included in the Columbia Heights priority area, and they will welcome 2 new additional schools, Ida B. Wells and Dill Middle School, to that area. The DC School Connect and Microtransit shuttles for Ward 7 and 8 will increase to serving a total of 32 schools this school year. And last but not least, our safe spots will expand to all 8 priority areas, giving students a safe space to go if they feel that they may be afraid or may be in danger as they're traveling to and from school. And last but not least, transportation. DCPS will be offering our students with 2 options, Kids Ride Free program and OSSI Transportation. For Kids Ride Free, that will remain in place for this upcoming school year, where students will be able to collect their cards beginning on August 22nd. And to learn more, please visit the website that's highlighted on the screen for you. For OSSI Transportation, DCPS continues to work with our colleagues with the Office of the State Superintendent of Education to provide transportation to those students who are eligible. And if you have any additional questions, you can reach out directly to your special education point of contact, or you can contact the OSSI Parent Resource Center at 202-576-5000. Thank you, and at this time, I'll turn it back over to Chancellor Farabee.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you to the entire team of presenters this evening. As you heard, first and foremost, we're excited to welcome students back to another year of joyful and rigorous learning. But we have prepared to provide a strong slate of academic supports, as you heard from Chief Colgan. You also heard this evening that we have a plan for our youngest learners and our early child education programs. And then we have adjusted our health protocols in alignment with the guidance from the health experts and the CDC. It's important to note that we will continue to assess, and we will revise or pivot our plans according to the information that we receive. It's important you note that we have several reminders that we will close with before we go to question and answer. Just reminding families that it's so important that you adhere to the immunization requirements for childhood immunizations that were presented tonight by Dr. Elliott. Reminder, the way to do that is to complete your child's DC Universal Health Certificate. And then we're also reminding families to be prepared to participate in our test to return efforts, which means that every student must take a COVID test before the first day of school and ensure that they have a negative test before reporting to school. And then we also just want to remind families to actively enroll if you have not done so already, to ensure that you've submitted all your documents. We don't want to assume that all of that is complete, as enrollment is a critical part of ensuring that we're prepared to receive your child on the first day of school on August 29th for K through 12, and then for September 1st for our youngest learner in our early childhood education programs. So with that, I'm now going to turn it over to our team that will moderate the question and answer portion of tonight's town hall.
Thank you. As a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, you can press 0 now to be added to our speaker queue, or if you are joining via social media, you can comment your question on any of our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. So for our first question, I believe this is around immunizations. The earliest appointment my health provider was able to provide was in October. Is that okay? And what documentation do I have to submit to my school?
Thank you for that question. A great question. First, we are excited that families are already thinking about how to meet the requirement of the childhood immunizations. To answer this question it's easy. Yes, we do accept documentation that individuals have secured an appointment as a means to ensure that the child is not excluded from school. We do also allot time from the first day of school to give families an opportunity to get appointments and to secure those appointments and get shots for students. So, Dr. Elliott, anything else you'd like to add to that response?
I would just add is that we have mobile clinics, and our school-based health clinics have lots of openings for immunization appointments. So if you're on a delay with your physician, they can't get you in, want to encourage you to please take advantage of those robust opportunities across the entire city where you can get your immunizations.
Awesome. Our next question is from our YouTube platform, and it's from a parent of a high school scholar. Before COVID, high school started before 9 a.m. Why are high schools still running a 9 to 3:30 p.m. schedule?
Yeah, we have not made any shifts in our scheduling for high school students or students across the district. We do ensure that we meet the requirements for the school day in coordination with the Office of State Superintendent of Education. Many of our high school students have started later in the morning. That's been a historic scheduling option for schools across the district. And we coordinate directly with our high schools on any staggered schedules. There are scenarios in which for the first week of school or the first day, principals or school administration may ask that students report at a specific time by that grade level.
We're going to turn it over to our telephone line for Tamar. You are able to speak now.
Hi, I was wondering if there is an exposure and a positive COVID case in a class, will the entire class be forced to mask for 10 days after like they were in the spring?
Thank you for that question. So I will turn it over to Dr. Elliott. And the first thing I would say is that we always ensure that there is a transparent notification that goes out to families whenever there's a positive case in the class. But Dr. Elliott, you want to speak to what families should do as it relates to that notification?
Sure. We are not mandating masking. I think that was the specific thing you were interested in. No, we are not mandating that the entire class mask for 10 days. But as part of that protocol, we will send notice home to impacted students. As the chancellor indicated, that is called our class notification. And in that letter, it'll indicate that, you know, there's someone in the class that's tested positive. You should watch for COVID-related symptoms that might develop over time. And if so, your child would need to isolate if that is the case. But there is no requirement for masking. I think that notification is very important because at times there are individuals in classrooms that might be immunocompromised, or have family members at home that are compromised, and when they're notified, they may want to wear a mask. But masking will remain optional.
Thank you, Dr. Elliott.
Our next question is from YouTube as well. Will you require 5+ age range for vaccination as soon as it's off of EUA, emergency use authorization?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the question again was around vaccination requirements. It's important to note that the DC Council has made the legislation for vaccination requirements as a part of the requirements for our vaccination for all students as those vaccinations are approved. Currently, vaccinations are approved for those students that are 12 and older. We don't have any line of sight at this time into what the council intends to do as it relates to additional approvals or any changes to vaccinations for students or children under 18.
And our next question, where should students pick up the Smart Trip card on August 22nd?
Thank you. Well, one thing I want to just note before I turn it over to Mr. Brown is that students can continue to use their Smart Trip cards as a part of our Kids Fry Free efforts from the previous school year. So I want to note that if they have a card from the 21-22 school year, we don't shut those down for the first couple of days of school, so they can use those. But if they need one, as stated earlier, they can pick it up before school starts, and there also is distribution at schools as well. So, Mr. Brown, you want to turn it over to you, sir, to talk a little bit about where they can pick them up.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Farabee. Those cards can also be picked up by going to the main office, where a point of contact will be able to support you there. That's usually in the form of either the school leader or our enrollment POC registrar.
For our next question, what protocols are being placed for monkeypox?
Thank you for the question around monkeypox. It is something that we have been tracking closely and have been coordinating our response with Department of Health. It's important to note at this time, there's no indication that there is a risk for monkeypox transmission in schools based on the activities that occur in school. However, we will continue to monitor this closely with DC Health should there be any mitigation strategies be put in place, and then we will also continue to follow our transparency around notification should there be notification be made to impacted students and families.
For our next question, where do I sign up for the pre-K home visits?
Yes, you should receive a notification from your school, so teachers will usually be reaching out. If you haven't heard from teachers yet, they are starting back tomorrow, actually, is their first official day back. So you can expect to hear from them soon. If you haven't within the next several days or by early next week, you can certainly reach out to your child's school and ask for that information, and then they will contact you to get that scheduled.
For our next question, my son has been receiving extra supports in reading to catch up from COVID. Will he still get these supports?
Great question. And as we think about the start of the school year, we have been monitoring student data throughout last school year in the summer through our multi-tier system of support. We will continue to provide supports and intervention based on student need. So if there's a need for additional support in math or literacy, schools are prepared to provide those supports this school year. We still also have access to recovery funding that's been allocated directly to schools that schools can utilize to support student need as well. And we look forward to continue to monitor that progress throughout the school year.
And this question actually comes from our Spanish Zoom line. How can a parent figure out which vaccines their child is missing?
Great question about the vaccine. Again, I'm really pleased that there's so much interest about compliance and getting the shots in arms. And so as shared by Dr. Elliott, that information is on the DCPS website. That information is also on the DC Health website. And schools also have access to that information. So if you can visit a school, you certainly can get as much information there as well. And all the healthcare providers in the city as well can also share that information. Dr. Elliott, is there any other place that you encourage families to look?
I think you got it, Chancellor.
Thank you.
And it looks like we made it through all of our questions. So thank you for joining us this evening. And for our upcoming events, we do have an event so save the date for the annual DCPS Back to School Block Party on Saturday, September 17 from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Join us at Elliott Hine Middle School for free food, fun activities, student performances, and resources and giveaways. Register at bit.ly/DCPS Block Party 22. Thank you for joining us again, and see you on Monday, August 29 for the first day of school.
We now return to our previously scheduled program, already in progress.
And then Nationwide. Nationwide of Columbus, Ohio, like Toyota and Bank of America, a longtime friend and partner of the National Urban League, represented here by Lou Yarborough III,